With the end of 1.0 of Wuthering Waves, there's been a lot of like rehashing the tier list, what characters are good, what characters are not. What we do have is 5 characters that massively buffed or nerfed in the 1.0 tier list for Wuthering Waves that 1010 dropped. Now 1010 has dropped some videos in the past that I did not agree with. I think when we got into that whole, I didn't do a whole video on it on YouTube, but I did talk about when he was talking about the 4-4-1-1-1 versus the 4-3-3-1-1-1 argument. If you don't know what I mean by that, it's fine. Build your echoes how you need to at your stage of the game. But I think broadly speaking, 1010 still has some really good information to offer. And so I want to see what he's kind of going over with this. I feel like I've had a really good opportunity to like try out a lot of the different characters as of this point, using some of the trial characters with some of the events and stuff that we've had too. So I'm interested to see what some of the changes in the tier list he might be referring to. So I don't know. What you got, 1010?
With Wuthering Wave 1.0 finally coming to an end and 1.1 coming in, it's time to finally update the 1.0 tier list. But first, today, I want to talk about a few characters that got major adjustment between the closed beta test to the release. Because I feel like
1010, can you do me a favor? And sometimes when you talk at the camera, like even occasionally, I understand you're probably reading something and so you got to look away, but like just for like a little bit, like glance at the camera, acknowledge we're here. I think it will help. I think it will help just a little bit, okay? That's just bear in mind.
that would give a lot of missing context of why the tier list was formed certain way during the beta and now why they're so different today. And we're actually gonna get
what is so different. I feel like I don't know if there's been any like massive upsets from previous, like in the 1.0 tier list.
Started with one of the most popular and most powerful character right now, Verina. Wait, isn't Verina already really powerful during the beta? Well, yes, but she actually got a massive buff. See, you didn't know that, huh?
He looked at the camera, he did it.
Didn't know that. So, with that being said, right after you subscribe to the channel, and I also stream regularly on Twitch, we're gonna get started. In my opinion, Verina is currently the best character in the entire game. With
hold on, that was like something that we knew like day one, that she was like the best support in the game from the damage buff that she offered. She heals. It's an all damage. It's an all damage deepen, I think is technically the term for it. So like literally you can slot her in like any team ever. So like, what do you mean? What's new about that? What do you mean?
one of the fastest ability to generate outro on top of providing a bunch of buff as well as healing. Pretty much every single team in the game wants Verina.
Yes.
But do you know she actually got one of the biggest buff like I mentioned? Verina's first passive Gift of Nature actually got one.
Oh, Rip, what are you doing here, dude? You need this top one too. This also gives you another huge buff to her kit if you didn't know. If you have a Verina and you've not unlocked this top slot yet, I would suggest you do so.
The biggest change in the entire game. Now I'm gonna put the old one on the screen for you right now. See if you can spot the difference. Am
I crazy? What am I missing?
The difference is, well, instead of casting a resident skill to trigger your passive, you now
heavy attack,
heavy attack, or a mid-air attack. They kind of did this to prevent people from just swapping to Verina, cast your skills, and then actually move out.
Oh, okay, like that's okay. I didn't see that before. I guess because I've always kind of played with like just doing the mid-air attack because that's what you get on the swap in anyway. That I've never really noticed the difference there. But okay, fair enough.
Forces you to interact with her.
This is why I'm not an editor. Some of those like detail things just like go right over my head, man.
Her inherent passive instead. But little they know, this will be one of the biggest buffs they did for the entire game. Now, fortunately, I recorded beta footage for every single characters in the game, so let me show you what the old beta Verina did instead. During the second closed beta, Verina pretty much played the same, but in order to proc her stacks, you have to do this like heavy attack bumper card minigame thing. In this clip, you can...
Which is kind of annoying if you're trying to keep a distance, like it forces you to close the gap, but now you don't have to do that.
See that in comparison, her mid-air attack does not proc the stack at all. This here is one of the biggest buffs they can possibly give to
well, the text is glitching like crazy.
Any characters in the entire game. That's because Verina's stacked mechanics is really good. It heals you for a lot, but it also additionally generates concerto energy per stacks.
Yeah, she gets energy so fast. So you can have her, I think you need like 140 energy regen, somewhere between like 130, 140. And like you can get the energy you need to swap the next like intro skill like that, man. Like it's so easy to build a Verina to have her be useful on your team.
And back then, when you have to burn stacks like one by one, it would be so long to heal any characters as well as to generate your outro. But now you can just dump all your stacks at once by doing mid-air attack, generating you a bunch of healing and a bunch of control energy. And this is probably the biggest buff, in my opinion, from beta to live. I don't know, maybe because when I tell people Verina is a buffer, nobody will listen, and they're like, healer can't be good, healer can't be good, and don't they buff her?
None of what he just said made sense to me. Am I crazy? I feel like my brain just like shut off for a second. Like, no one has been arguing her utility. Maybe before the launch, but I feel like since game launched, everybody was kind of on the same page.
Now, Verina is currently the best character in the entire game going into every single team. So pick up your Verina right now, today, in the subscribe button. The next character to cover is probably one of the fan favorite, Genshin.
Genshin has gone up and down a couple times because, like, from like a waifu tier list perspective, people freaking love Genshin. I am one of those people. I am a Genshin enjoyer. But then a lot of people were really harping on her charge ability, on her concerto effect, thinking that it took too long to do that. However, once people started pairing that a lot with the Turtle Echo, the Bellborn Geocleon or whatever it's called, then they found the combination between those two things were actually huge. So that was something that came out of like probably like halfway through 1.0 that people were like, actually, you know what, Genshin's kind of based, especially because she's like a great all-rounder with some of her CC as well, from some of her abilities, that actually she's a pretty good flex support unit too.
My opinion right now, Genshin sit at a okay spot, being a pretty decent support. Her main job is just to spam ults to group enemy continuously for an AoE character like Havoc Rover. The biggest problem with Genshin is always like, in order to get her shield or healing, you have to be doing these long animation on field, which is just really long.
It's really only a problem in game modes like Tower of Adversity or in the hologram tower, where like really you are under the gun in terms of like time, and then that becomes a bit of a problem. But anything open world, it's like it's not an issue. But I mean, like if you're thinking about from the competitive standpoint, if we're talking about meta, I guess that makes sense. But
only you have to generate her Forte circuit, then you have to spend a long time channeling it to actually get the effect, and that's just not very good. And that is still kind of true. What they did buff is that they buffed that to be a little better, but they buffed many other aspects of her kit as well. Genshin actually generated Forte circuit a lot slower on her basic attack during the beta, in comparison now where she actually generates a more respectable amount. So if you're putting her onto the field and attack, you're able to get your Forte circuit up a lot faster. Yeah,
we heard about that rework actually off the end of the CBT2. They posted some notices for us letting us know that they were going to be reworking her kit. They didn't end up doing a complete overhaul, but they definitely did like bump some of those calculations.
But you know what really was the problem with Genshin? Her ult was not only slow, but it has a pretty small radius. Notice how in the previous clip, I only sucked it up one enemy, even though there's a bunch of enemies next to each other. Here you can see that the enemy gets stuck in one step at a time slowly. And here is what it is on live right now. We can see that it's almost instantaneous that they get sucked to the center.
Yeah, and that was definitely like a big problem I did hear from a couple other like CCs who managed to get Genshin in the CBT2, that it was a little bit lackluster. But now that it's got better like CC, she's got way more utility than she did previously. But like, yeah, okay. All right, we're on the same page. I agree.
But the biggest buff that Genshin probably got is the release of Havoc Rover.
Ooh, this is what changed?
Genshin Suction just synergized extremely well with the way Havoc Rover is played, having a ult that does massive nuke in a small radius. But on top of that, Havoc Rover is just one of the best characters to actually take advantage of Genshin Outro, which empowered their ults damage by 38% in a damage deepened form. If you think of
nice, because if you did that, and then as well, if you have the Dreamless Echo on the Havoc Rover after that, like you can totally just like go in, cycle in, get the damage boost, like go from Verina to Genshin, because you get the whole team buff, go to Genshin, get that ultimate damage buff, go to Havoc Rover, pop that off, then follow it up with the Dreamless Echo. Like you're talking about some pretty mad damage at that point. Okay, that's a pretty sweet synergy. I don't mind that.
Think about it right now, not a lot of characters can really take advantage of this buff right here, other than Havoc Rover, which again wasn't in the beta. So this is probably the biggest buff that Genshin got.
Yeah, because I think it would be for any characters that your ultimate is just like a single burst of damage. So like Dungeon probably could still capitalize on that as well, because it's a pretty short window in which that takes place. But like a lot of other characters like Chiia or like more Tefi or someone else comes to mind where like it's just like a more like continuous thing, like over time, you're not going to be able to maximize the utility of that buff because it's not just like a singular burst of damage.
Now talk about buff. It's time to talk about a character that got massively nerfed. Kosharo.
Oh, no, please. Not Daddy Sephiroth at home. What happened to my boy? Look what they've done to my boy. What did they do?
So many scaling adjustment between the beta to the release, all of his damage just pretty much went down on the board.
Yeah, he was pretty cracked in the beta.
Well, Outro no longer stay after you switch the character off the field. Yin
Wait,
just looked like the obvious support character choice for Kalcharo since her Outro amplify electro damage as well as resonance liberation damage.
Yeah, which to be honest, like still synergizes well with Kalcharo.
One of the best characters that can take advantage of both of these at the same time is Kalcharo. While this buff disappear when you're outside of the field, if you're doing swap cancel fast enough, you can see that Kalcharo is still going to be attacking during your swap cancel, and the buff doesn't disappear if you swap back to it fast enough. One of Kalcharo's biggest problem is that you're pretty reliant on hitting everything in your ult, and without the power of swap canceling, this could be very detrimental to overall your DPS output, or you risk losing the buff.
I think, okay, hot take. I mean, I guess, look, we're in the context of meta here, but I'm going to say I don't think that's going to necessarily affect like the average casual player. Like that, we're starting to get into like some like advanced tech territory there about why you need to like do things in a certain rotation. You're talking about the animation canceling. So like, yeah, from a meta perspective, for sure, I can understand the argument, but from like an average player, you're not going to notice that crap, man.
I think Kalcharo Yinlin was expected to be one of the best electro team in the entire game, and now it is still a pretty decent team. It just, well,
when did 1010 kind of take on this like edgier vibe? Like, has he been wearing chokers for a while? I feel like he had this like little bit of like a geekier look before, and now I feel like he's like really trying to have like this like glow up and go hardcore with it. Chat, should I have a glow up? Should I have a glow up? What should I do?
Not that up high anymore. So this is actually a massive nerf on any tier list out there. The next one to talk about could be very
again, I still don't think it's a massive nerf. It's a massive nerf for meta, and it just makes more text needed. That's all. But like again, if you're a casual player, you're not gonna notice.
surprising. I think this is currently one of the most underrated 4-star DPS right now, and that is Chiia.
Oh, okay.
Chiia went through one of the most interesting iteration in my experience. During the first closed beta, she was very powerful. Her skill was able to destroy any enemy, but in return, her normal attack was not very good at all.
Yeah, it hit like freaking like peanuts. Like you were shooting freaking packing peanuts at people. It did not do a lot of damage.
It did physical damage instead of fusion damage. Chiia then went through one of the most major adjustments in the second closed beta. Her dodge counter does very little damage. You can see that her dodge counter here only does 2,000 damage each, even though she's a level 70 Chiia.
Well, that's because I think they recalculated the counter damage to be like scaling on the enemy's HP. So I can see like why that would have probably gone up from CBT2 into the full release as well.
And then her skills is incredibly hard to use because you have to fire all bullets, and then it still doesn't do that much damage. One of the biggest problems with Chiia is that it is really hard to build bullets on her skills, and even then her skill has a lot of problems, which included long cast time. So it feels like a waste to just, well, ruin it. And so they buffed it. One of the easiest aspects to use about Chiia, her normal attack. Chiia's normal attack now has one of the highest scaling in the entire game. Specifically, her dodge counter has 200% scaling only at level 3. This footage is sent to me by the exact same Twitch viewer, and this dodge counter damage is, oh my god, honestly, actually illegal.
Well, again, I think we're not taking into consideration here. There's a portion of it, I'm pretty sure that scales off of enemy HP. Like, that's why we were able to exploit some of those elite mobs earlier in the game when you were like, you know, chilling at like level 30 or level 40 and you were taking down 120 like level bosses, because on the counter, you were doing huge chunks of damage. So like that's not simply just her dodge counter percentage there. Like that's also how they changed the calculation there.
They buffed this dodge counter damage by so much that it just does infinite damage now. Chiia also have one of the—
That's just dodge counters for everybody though. I don't think that's special.
The best scaling in the entire game. Even at level 1, it is already reaching something like 800% scaling. In comparison to my level 5 Havoc Rover, it is at 1000% scaling. So honestly, Chiia ults as well as Havoc Rover ults are somewhat comparable. But
I think the other thing that's going to be helpful there, though, with Chiia, to be honest, is because she's a 4-star character, the odds of you getting some of her duplicates, like some of those sequences on her, to boost that damage even more is way more likely than you getting duplicates on 5-star characters. Like, I agree with the take that I think a lot of 4-star characters already are comparable to a lot of the 5-star characters, but if you get more sequences on them and like max sequences on these characters, I think basically become 5-star characters, if not better in some cases. So like if Chiia's already got this kind of scaling and she doesn't even have a lot of that like additional investment to it, that's actually like not that bad. I'm still not convinced on that dodge counter portion though.
thing is, Chiia also have the advantage of being really good in bosses, again thanks to her high dodge counter scaling. So this is a character that is both good in AoE situation and in single target situation. I think this is currently one of the most underrated 4-star damage dealer in the entire game, and it's probably going to be my next character that I'll pick up immediately since, well, I wasted all my resources on Ling.
Oh, bro leveled Ling Yang. I just want to give a shout out to anybody who's watching this video, or anybody in chat right now. My heart goes out to you if you decided to level Ling Yang. But hey, I never encouraged you to do so.
Chiia got so much buff since the second closed beta that I think she currently deserves a really high spot on any tier list out there. I think people are a little hesitant to try her because of the impression they have from her from the second closed beta, as well as the fact that she's a character given for you for free at the beginning of the game. But I think this is one of the best characters in the game right now, suitable for all situations, and I would encourage people to give her a try.
I want to see, like, I wish he would have included some kind of side-by-side there on the dodge. Like, what that counter damage was going to be, because I was using a level 1 Mortefi with a level 1 Cadenza, and I was able to do the dodge counter to beat, like, different elites in the game, and I was still taking chunks off. I didn't take note of specifically the damage, but it was like, it was in the thousands on nothing with no levels. So, like, I'd be interested to see, like, what kind of progression there, like, the difference that you actually get. Like, are we talking about like a factor of like 2, a factor of 4? Like, what is the difference based on that like dodge counter scaling? I wish I had some more practical examples there. Mortefi's dodge counter at level 6, for example, is 142% multiplier, and Chiia is China level 1. China number 1 is 171%. Okay, so definitely a higher factor there for sure. So basically everyone benefits from the health damage you were talking about. However, then there's a percentage damage buff on top of that, and Chiia is the highest out of all the units currently. So I definitely understand that, but I want to know, like, what is the factor difference there? Like, what is the difference that results, like, in damage? Like, again, are we talking about, like, let's say we had equal stats on Mortefi and Chiia, and both of them were doing a dodge counter. Are we talking Chiia does 8,000 damage and Mortefi does 6,000 damage? Or are we talking about something closer or farther? Is it more significant? Like, I wish I could actually see how the numbers bore out in, like, a more practical sense, if that makes sense.
The final character that got a major buff is actually Ling. Due to the second closed beta, Ling was probably one of the worst characters out there. He was extremely clunky, his forte mechanics is really bad because you have this weird airwalk mechanics, and he has really weird and janky like hitbox as well as hurtbox.
He did feel really clunky to me. Like, I think of all the characters, Ling Yang felt the most clunky to me. Well, I think he had like some really interesting flashy animations. I just did not like how his kit played out, and also getting one tapped in the air is stupid. So I never wanted to build him from the get-go.
Since then, the developer has come out in a developer note saying that they will adjust Ling Yang's moveset for a better overall elevated combat experience. The developer has specifically said that they will adjust Ling Yang moveset for a better experience, and so therefore, since the game release, he got a massive buff. And so on release,
well, that was after CBT 2. That's what he's referencing there, that they announced some changes. But like, what are the changes? Like, because everything I've seen so far, it's not been like that different.
I picked up Ling Yang to be my main character, and he's actually really good right now. I was able to beat the difficulty 6 morning act with ease using this character. You can check out the video I sent.
Okay.
Actually, just kidding. I think the developer completely forgot the fact that they said they were going to buff him. I think they just forgot about these characters. I think they just didn't buff.
You had me in the first half, I'm not gonna lie. 1010. I thought you were being serious there, dude. Come on.
Of him at all. In fact, this character is actually worse now. The one thing that they did change about him since the beta is that his sequence 4 now buff glacial damage bonus instead of attack. That means if you pair him with any non-glacial characters in the future, they actually can't take advantage of this buff here.
Hold on. But that's like his sequence 4, right? Is that what we're looking at? Like, or is that his sequence 1? It's from looking at the selection there, it looks like it's down here, which would be like his sequence 4. So why would we care about that? To all team members by 20% for 30 seconds. I'm sorry, talking about a sequence 4 on a 5-star character is just like completely irrelevant and not in the realm of conversation to me.
Here, since it only buffed glacial damage now. Wow. I think Ling Yang is a character right now where even if you put 2x the investment in, you do like half the damage compared to like any other character in the game. So during this second closed beta, he was D tier with potential to be better in the future to get buff. And now I think this character is officially F tier, potentially the worst character in the entire game. So
F tier, dude, brutal. I mean, sometimes it's nice to be vindicated on my choices. So far, I've picked waifu over meta almost every time. I've been reaping my rewards with Yin Lin, with Danjin, Jianshin came up too. It's good, man. That's why you always pick waifu over meta. You'll never be disappointed, and in fact, sometimes you even get rewarded for it. Let's go.
yeah, this character got fucked. Can someone please refund all the resource I dumped into this garbage character, please?
Yo, if they want to roll out some character resets, I wouldn't say no.
Well, with that being said, those are 5 characters that got major changes in the second closed beta, and now to release, they have their spot kind of move up or down in your corresponding tier list. Now, one of the characters that I think is an honorable mention, but I didn't include, is actually the main characters.
True. A Rover, and like we knew Rover was decent from CBT2 in terms of like the parrying capability of her and or him, whatever one you wanted to pick, and that like the being able to parry with the Rover has been super helpful with like wanting to push some of that like higher tier content. But the fact that like her damage scaling and everything else is good, like I don't know if I've ever played a gacha game where the main character of the game is actually sick. Like Star Rail just kind of got there with the Harmony MC, where there's way more utility now, like specifically with Firefly makes like the super break is absolutely cracked. But I don't know if I've played like any other gacha game where the main character they give you at the gate is actually good, like actually good.
The Spectre main characters. The main characters was already really good during the first or second closed beta, but the release of Havoc Rover made these characters even more insane.
True.
Now, I don't know if you consider these to be the same characters since they're both the main characters. Some people consider it to be the same, some people consider them not to be the same. But in any cases, the main character is currently one of the best characters in this game right now, and the release of Havoc Rover definitely made some other characters shine even more, like again, Genshin. So there's some impact there as well. But
I mean, I would still consider them the same character, but I mean, at the very least, one of the benefits is that when you level the Rover, you level the Rover. So even in the future, if they bring in other elements to swap to in the future from other regions, you're still gonna have like a max level Rover at that point. You're just probably gonna have to re-level some of the skills and get some new echoes and stuff for them. But like, I mean, it's nice that you're going to have this character that so far they're 2 for 2 on having it be like a solid character and actually bringing value to your team. So that's great.
Since this is a new character, I didn't include it in this video. But that being said, if you enjoyed watching this video, or if you would like a complete tier list, I guess, which I can make one, then subscribe as always, like, comment, I'll see you all next time, okay? Bye!
Great video from 1010. Honestly, really good. 1010, small thing, I'd pick up the music. It was a little too slow. I was getting a little bit EP. On that one. But other than that, I think it was a good video. Appreciate him pointing out some of those other changes. I mean, there was nothing like super brand new there that I think, other than real, like getting the affirmation that Ling Yang still sucks. I'm sorry for the Ling Yang players out there. And I mean, like, look, at the end of the day, if you like how Ling Yang plays, you're okay with like some of that kind of like clunkiness that he kind of has as part of his kit, and you're able to play around that, and you're okay with it, you're cool with it. I mean, people said the same thing about Jianshin, and I'm okay with Jianshin's kit doing that, then like that's fine. You know, at the end of the day, play how you want to play. But hey, Dungeon gamers, rise up. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you made this far in the video, make sure to drop a like and subscribe. I'm gonna link this video to chat. The link is also going to be in the description down below, so make sure to check it out, give it a watch, give it a like, and would greatly appreciate that and giving support, because I appreciate 1010 putting this video together. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.